All right, what is up, everybody? We are here, the end of the summit. It's day 2. We're all getting ready to leave. I'm here with Tyler, who is the founder and owner of Exergy, and he's also what we would deem the lead heat punk. He might not say that, but we definitely think he is. I mean, you're one of the most passionate people about the heat punk industry. So just tell me about this event here, and then tell me why you're so passionate about it.
Totally. So the Hash Rate Heat Punk Summit, where we're at right now, is a gathering from both sides of the aisle trying to marry the Bitcoin mining developers and the heating industry sectors to create the emergent hash rate heating industry. Meaning we are creating a new option for delivering comfort heat for space and water heating around the world. Overall, I'm super stoked with the turnout. You guys can see in the footage behind me a much more professional looking hash tub, Bitcoin heated hot tub than last year, our cowboy hot tubs from last year. And I think that really sets the stage for the framing I had for this year's summit was defining an industry. So overall, just more maturity in the products, the services, the installers, the talks, the quality of people. From the regulatory side of things, we've got guys from ASHRAE all the way to the software developers, the ASIC chip manufacturers, getting to hear from Canaan and many of our other sponsors and supporters. It's just been an awesome, huge success.
It's been incredible. I mean, literally watching the Heat Punk Summit or the Heat Punk ethos live and grow, but also getting to a point where we can provide consumer-ready products. I mean, it's a big change. You know, we need to stay punk, we need to stay heat punk forever, but we're not going to be able to do that if we want to grow and survive. So can you kind of just talk me through that?
I think I've been asked this a lot, like, if we're maturing as an industry, becoming an actual viable option in the heating industry space where, you know, natural gas, propane, et cetera, all your options, and Bitcoin mining heating is one of those options. I think the way we stay punk is not becoming Bitmain. So Bitcoin mining, the hardware, the firmware, a lot of the software is closed source and proprietary and controlled right now. And, you know, it's this 80% monopoly. And so that's why I'm so fortunate that the 256 Foundation team is here. Like, these guys open sourcing the mining stack. I think that is the punk nature. You know, at the end of the day, if GE or Carrier or Bosch, one of these giant companies that makes furnaces and air handling units to supply heat and air conditioning, I mean, they have much bigger market than Bitmain does with all the heat that's used around the world. They could easily become like the largest, most centralized mining pool on earth if they wanted to. You know, we're thinking out long time frame. I think the way we keep the punk ethos is literally just staying true to Bitcoin's ethos, which is peer-to-peer electronic cash, decentralized, no central authority of control. You got to have decentralized product manufacturers, service installers, different firmware options, open source software that you can verify, inspect, get under the hood, and that's what keeps it punk.
Absolutely. You mentioned the 256 Foundation.
Yeah.
I want to talk about that a little bit because the Heat Punk branding is now underneath that umbrella.
That's right.
What does that mean for the Heat Punks here at the space?
So I recently joined the board of 256 Foundation, which was founded by Rod Rudy of Bitcoin Park and Econo Alchemist. Scott and I are now on the board, and it is a 501c3 nonprofit aiming to dismantle the proprietary mining empire. Meaning we want to bring mining back to its roots, back when it was on, you know, a laptop computer or a desktop and CG miner, and you could actually see the open source firmware and verify, hey, am I getting paid out what the shares I submit, the electricity I consumed? Like, technically you can't even check that right now. That is the ethos of that nonprofit. So we raise money to fund core development projects, open source firmware, hashboard, mining pool, and a control board. Those are the 4 main projects. But now Hash Rate Heat Punks is a community project underneath the 256 Foundation, which is eligible for grants. And I really view it as the application layer of, like, well, now that we opened up the black box of a Bitcoin miner and we built all these open source building blocks that you can use now, you don't have to start from ground zero.
Absolutely.
What can you build, right? The BitAxe is a great learning tool, starting point, but now we can start to think big about how does this actually scale? Like, what's the most useful amount of hash rate I can put in my house? Like, probably as much as my furnace needs. And so just to finish with that, like, being under the 256 Foundation means, how are we going to integrate into building management systems? How are we going to, you know, work with architects and the engineers that design HVAC systems? How are we going to work with the regulatory landscape from, like, home insurance? All of these challenges that must be overcome are now underneath an organization that exists to support solving them as a means to keep Bitcoin mining decentralized.
We have this existing heating infrastructure, this existing electrical infrastructure. It's, you know, 100-year plus technology that has taken a long time to build out. Do you think that we see compression in the heating industry now as we're trying to build these smart heaters? Or do you think it might still take, you know, 50, 60 years for, you know, let's say 70% of the world who needs electrical heating infrastructure to move to these smart heaters? What's your thoughts?
That's a good question. I had an awesome workshop yesterday with the architects and the home builders and all the people from the regulatory landscape. And these are the people that are, following all the check boxes of what you need to do to be like considered an actual option in the heating industry. And it was a huge list we came up with of stuff we have to do. I mentioned building management systems like BACnet. I think it's hard to judge. I think we need case studies. I think someone's gonna have to be the guinea pig, which is the slow part. It's like this treading water upstream. We're trying to get someone to just say, hey, like try this in a commercial setting and take the risk. Maybe it can't get passed through the engineering drawings. We got to overcome that. We got to make sure it can be insurable. We got to make sure there's no fire risk. We got to make sure it's certified. You have maintenance techs, right? All this stuff. Once we do that guinea pig being solved, I really hope it can be used as a framework and where it scales much faster and it doesn't take many decades.
Yeah, once somebody takes the steps and actually takes the journey, then it's easier for other people to follow. Exactly. And it's really important, a point that you touched on is the regulatory hurdles that we have to go through in order to make this a consumer-ready product.
The most important thing we can be doing is actually making this a community movement and doing what we're doing here today, closing out this summit, getting everyone together. The heat punk ethos, the hash rate heating sector name, whatever you want to call it, like this is how industries are born, and we're doing it here.
We went from cowboy hot tubs that had no heat regulation that you built in a couple of days to a standalone consumer-ready product that is a fixture of the space here in 1 year, and so much more. I mean, you joined the 256 Foundation, you've been able to create management systems. 256 is building this stack of mining equipment. What do you want to see over the next year?
Getting the big fish here. I mean the people that have 30, 40, 50% of market share on residential or commercial heating infrastructure. I'm thinking about Lennox, I'm thinking about Carrier, I'm thinking about General Electric, because these are the people that are, they have their own training programs, they have their own certified workforce, they have influence at the regulatory level, the lobbying level. I mean, they basically own the game, at least in North America. And we don't have to get bogged down on how it's different in different countries or jurisdictions, but the point being is, let's get the real innovators, the people that own the heating industry, to come check this out.
Why is Bitcoin better for us as individuals than the fiat dollar?
Because Bitcoin can't be controlled. It's self-custodial, meaning once you have it and you store those keys, those passwords, however you want to think about it, whatever analogy you want to use, you have maximum sovereignty over that. It's the only real asset you actually have control over. We can get into the conversation about, do you own your house? Do you pay property taxes, right? Are you renting from the government? Long story short is, Bitcoin is something that no one can take from you. And there's so much power in that. And the Heat Punk Summit is like a crazy layer on top where it's like my utility, my heating appliances can get me this most valuable asset. But to me, Bitcoin is maximum sovereignty and freedom.